Welcome again to another episode of Come Let Us Reason Together. We are still on that series about the ladies of the Bible. Today we shall be talking about Bathsheba. We know the story of Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. The Bible records that, while the Israelites were at war, David was up on the roof of his place. And if you've been to those Middle Eastern countries, the way they build their houses, there's almost like a flat top where you can go up to and you can oversee the city. So I imagine if he's the king and his house is on a hill, he will have a great view of the city. So it was said that the men were at war, and he was taking a walk up on the roof, and then he sighted Bathsheba having a bath. Now, some people have argued that, was she aware that the king normally takes that walk and then made herself available so that he could see her beauty, her nakedness, and desire her? That's another argument. Some people say no, she was just innocently having her bath, and then the king saw her, and lo and behold, he lusted after her, and then he asked who she was, and long story short, she was brought to him, and he went into her, and when he discovered that she was in the family way, he sent for her husband. And in the middle of a war, the husband was like, I can't leave my mates. They're up there fighting for the country. I can't just leave them. So David said, oh, go home and sleep with your wife. And he was like, no, maybe not to David. He just said in his mind, no, I can't go and be doing all that when my mates are giving their lives for the country. So he went and stayed with the guards at the palace. He didn't go home. So when David discovered that, because his grand plan was that he'll go home, and of course, if you've been at war, you've lacked, what, so you will, do what you do, and then later on he will claim, well, it was that time that you came home, that you did this, and she got pregnant, and so on and so forth. So he didn't do that. And David, in his so-called scheming mind, asked the army commanders to actually put him in the front of the battle and then withdraw and leave him. So they did just that. He went back to his troops and they put him right at the front and then withdrew, and of course he was killed. But guess what? The all-seeing eyes of God saw everything. So the Lord sent the prophet Nathan to come and tell David that he had seen what he had done. And so he came to him, and he spoke in parables and said, oh, a certain man like this had everything plenty, and another man had nothing, and this man that had plenty took the one little thing that this other poor man has. So what should be done to that man? David was full of righteous indignation. He was like, the person must die, how dare he do that, blah blah blah. And then the prophet told him, well, you are that person, because you not only committed adultery with somebody's wife, you had her husband killed. And David realized it, and I'm sure he wore sackcloths and put his hands on his head and went on and on. And Nathan said, well, here is the punishment from the Lord. I like how sometimes, we call it jungle justice. God gives instantaneous justice. So he gave his justice, and he said, these are the three punishments. One, the Lord that is, deliver you to the hands of your enemies so that they can deal with you with the sword or however they fought. Or 2, I will send a famine or a plague on the land. Or 3, I will, deal with you myself. So it's in that famous place where David said, Lord, have mercy, something. I'd rather fall into the hands of God, for his mercies, are forevermore. That God is more merciful than man, because man, when you give man an opportunity, he is wicked, evil to his fellow man. So, he just said, I'd rather fall into the hands of God. And then God said, okay, in that case, she will carry the pregnancy, but the child will not survive. So David was distraught. Now, I often wondered why he was distraught, because he did the wrong thing, and the Lord chastised you. Poor child, it's not his fault, but you would think that he would not want the memory of that whole episode to be around him. And yet he prayed, he fasted, he pleaded with God to let the child live. And God said, nah, I've decreed my final justice or judgment. The child will not live. So he did that for days, and finally the child died. And when the child died, he stood up and went, showered, ate, dressed himself well. Even his servants were a bit shocked and surprised. They were like, oh, this is weird. When the child was sick, he wore sackclothes, he was crying, this. Now that the child is dead, now is the time for him to mourn, but he's gone up, he's showered, he's done this, he's done that. So, but anyway, they didn't understand it. And hence that episode ended. But did you know that down the track, that same Bathsheba she became the mother of Solomon, who was actually the 6th child of King David, to whom he bequeathed the throne. And we all know about the wisest king that ever was, King Solomon. He was the son of David and Bathsheba. Thank you for listening.